What is going on, Catch fam? My name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we're going to be going over 5 quarterbacks who I believe need to be on your draft boards moving into the 2022 fantasy football season. These are going to be late round quarterbacks that I believe are currently being overlooked in current mock drafts or early best ball fantasy drafts. If you do enjoy today's content, be sure to hit that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe as well and join the Catch family on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And of course, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think of these quarterbacks overall, or what other QBs you believe are being slept on moving into the 2022 fantasy football season. All right, number 1 on the list, we have Jalen Hurts, who I have been tooting the horn for all offseason in our weekly mock drafts. He somehow has become a late round quarterback and has really slid down a couple tiers overall. This is a top 10 quarterback going off of last year's rankings, and for a majority of the year he was a top 2 fantasy quarterback in most scoring formats. He did start to tear off with that poor performance in week 12 against the Giants, and he dealt with some injuries, and he kind of had a little bit of a downfall in week 16 and week 17. I guess the Giants were Jalen Hurts' kryptonite last year, but he still played very well in week 15. If it wasn't for that little bit of a slump and those injuries, he would have easily finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I get some of the Jalen Hurts criticisms overall in terms of how he plays from a real life football standpoint, but from a pure fantasy standpoint, he is an absolute monster. Still put up over 3,000 passing yards, 16 passing touchdowns, which doesn't sound amazing, but when you factor in the 784 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns, he had a great year from a fantasy standpoint. I love him as a QB1, but if you're going out and getting a quarterback who maybe is prone to injuries like a Kyler Murray, or maybe you drafted Lamar Jackson last year like myself and you're a little bit worried about redrafting him, I think he is a beautiful complementary quarterback too on any fantasy squad. But overall, I just don't understand why he is being so incredibly slept on. He had a very solid fantasy season last year, and I think he's an absolute steal at the quarterback position overall. Next on the list, we got my guy Derek Carr, who is really starting to make some buzz in the fantasy community with the addition of Davante Adams to that offense, as well as the head coaching change overall. And listen, I don't think that Derek Carr is going to make a massive leap personally, but I do think he could easily finish as a top 15 QB overall. If part of your strategy is holding off at the quarterback position until the end of the draft, I think that Derek Carr is one of the absolute best QB1s you can snag. And once again, he is a beautiful QB2 going into next season as well. He had one of his best statistical years ever last season. Threw for over 4,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, still threw for 14 interceptions, which isn't necessarily great, but overall still a very solid year. Remember, early in the season last year, there were calls for Derek Carr to be in that MVP caliber conversation. He had a very nice season. He helped the Raiders stay fantasy relevant with guys like Zay Jones, Bryan Edwards, really helped elevate Hunter Renfro's game overall. And don't forget that Darren Waller was hurt for most of last season, and Carr still had a phenomenal year. Going into 2022, he gets one of the best wide receivers in the entire National Football League added to this offense in Davante Adams. He should have a healthy Darren Waller returning as well. And I personally really like the running attack that we should be expecting from Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake with the way that McDaniels as a head coach utilizes his running back. So I quite like Derek Carr. He has been picking up a lot of buzz in the community, like I said, and overall I think he's an absolute steal at where his current ADP is. Next up on the list, we got Captain You Like That Kirk Cousins, who finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback last year. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins, I totally get it. I'm not going to defend him from a pure football standpoint, but at the end of the day, he finishes as a top 15, a top 20 fantasy quarterback year after year. I know he's not the most exciting player. He's not always going to get you that extreme upside, but at the end of the day, he's going to get the job done 70% of the time for you. That makes him a great late round quarterback to draft. He did finish the year with over 4,000 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. It was actually a very good statistical year for Kirk Cousins last season, and Adam Thielen missed most of the year, who is one of Cousins' favorite overall red zone targets. So he should have Thielen returning healthy. KJ Osborne played very, very well as a wide receiver 3 for this team last year. And of course, you have one of the best receivers in the entire league in Justin Jefferson on this offense. And you should get Irv Smith at the tight end position back. Not to mention that Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison are a two-headed beast in that backfield. So I don't expect major things from this offense by any means, but I definitely expect them to be in that same caliber where Kirk Cousins can finish as a top 12 quarterback. He is a great late round QB to eye, and once again, I think he is being simply overlooked moving into the 2022 fantasy football season. Okay, guys, no, I could not make this list without including my guy Tua Time, baby. Listen, he missed a lot of games last season. He had some very good performances against very bad defenses. Let's not overlook that fact. And he had some games where we were hoping to stream him and he did not exactly show up. Last offseason, I was really tooting the horn for Tua to have a breakout sophomore campaign. That did not necessarily happen. He did deal with some injuries. Basically, all the concerns that fantasy owners were having moving into the last season came true, and I was left looking like an idiot. I did own him in my 20-man league last year. It did not work out. Nonetheless, moving into 2022, you've got a new head coach who's a very dynamic mini Sean McVay type guru. You've got a lot of additions to this offense. Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, both bringing a ton of speed. You've got a new left tackle and Armstead. I like the direction that the Dolphins are moving overall. Don't forget that Tua has an extreme security blanket in Jalen Waddle, and you've got Mike Gesicki at the tight end position, one of the most versatile tight ends in the league. In my opinion, really plays like a wide receiver. So I really like the direction that the Dolphins are moving in, like I said, and overall they've got at least 17 running backs that Tua can play around with as well. Listen, I don't think that Tua is going to make an extreme jump. I'm not going to make those claims again like I did last offseason, but overall, I think he can easily finish as a top 20 QB with some really nice upside against bad defenses. So I do think it's possible that Tua could move into that top 18, top 15 tier. And with his current ADP, you can get him at an absolute steal. He can literally be the last player that you draft in most drafting formats, although he is starting to pick up some overall buzz in the fantasy community, and many fantasy owners are willing to take him in mock drafts, as well as many fantasy owners are willing to take him in best ball live drafts currently. So I like the direction that Tua is moving in. I've always rooted for a guy Tua Time, and I'm going to keep him on my underrated list moving into the 2022 fantasy football season. Last on the list is Matty Ice, who finished as a top 20 QB last season with the Falcons, but he had some very disheartening performances, especially towards the end of the year. The Falcons, let's just face it, were one of the worst offenses in the entire league last year, but overall still threw for over 3,900 passing yards and 20 touchdowns. Did end up with double-digit interceptions with 12, but you get a change of scenery with our boy Matty Ice moving to my co-host Steven's favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. And I love this move for Matt Ryan. I think that the Colts will allow him to do what he does best. You get Michael Pittman as your wide receiver 1. You've got a phenomenal run game with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. The offensive line does have some issues, but overall is pretty solid. And let's face it, that Colts defense looks phenomenal moving into 2022. So I do think there are some issues at skill positions, especially the receiver and the tight end position, but I do think that the Colts have an opportunity to address that in the upcoming draft, as well as maybe some time left in free agency to pick up a veteran receiver as well. A little reunited, and it feels so good for Jones and Matt Ryan. We'll find out. Listen, overall, I would be slightly worrisome to have Matt Ryan as my QB1, to say the least. But if you play in a super flex league, or if you want a late round QB2 for your team. I think Matt Ryan is a very good overall selection. Listen, I don't think he's going to make a tremendous leap from where he was last year, but I do think he could easily finish in that top 18, top 15 range overall with that change of scenery moving over to the Indianapolis Colts. Final note for today, I will be making a second video within the coming week or so about what sophomore quarterbacks I do believe have the best chance to make a leap next year. We will be having discussions about players like Justin Fields, Mac and Cheese, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, as I do believe that group of quarterbacks are still late round QBs, but I also believe that they do deserve their own video and their own discussion. In case you were wondering why I did not include any of those former rookie QBs on this list. And that'll cap off the video, man. If you did enjoy today's content, make sure to hit that like button down below. Drop a comment as well with what QBs you think are being slept on moving into the 2022 fantasy football season, who are also being considered late round selections. And of course, hit that subscribe button down below, baby. Go ahead and join the Catch family on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.